Chapter 13. Marilyn, Chan said somberly to me the following day while he cleaned plants at the table in the kitchen hut. There's something we need to talk about. You must understand that you did not fully sleep when you came to Earth. That's why you have the dreams you do. Most people act out their purposes with unconscious motivations, never really understanding what they do. I'm afraid that's not the case for you. And once you begin to shake off the sleep, it never completely comes back. What are you trying to tell me, Chan? I asked him with a feeling of dread, drawing my knees up to my chest as I sat on the bench listening intently. That the higher your spirit flies, the more you'll remember, like a hawk seeing a vast view of what is before her and what lies behind. If we go to the temples and share the mushrooms, your spirit will rise to a vista loftier than dreams, and you'll see much more than has already come to you. You must be prepared for this. I believe the disease you carry was released by the Earth Mother in the last Khatun before the new era begins. Its origins can be cured. Don't be afraid to look at that part of it. If there is to be any knowledge gained or healing brought back, you must be willing to examine everything. I'm sure that your courage in going deep and facing the truth is one reason you were selected to struggle with it. There is another matter, that of your transformation. You'll get glimpses of these things. They're extremely important because they give you an understanding of what is happening to the world as a transformational whole. You must go into the ceremony knowing all of what I have told you. Will you and Don Juan participate with me? I asked. Yes, our paths are shared. We go with one another. If you have more questions, formulate them during these final days before the full moon. Once she is full, your thoughts must be complete. You think we will find a cure for this, Chan? If we do, it'll come from the earth and beyond, not just from men. This was what all our prayers and offerings at my sacred place were about. For some reason, I felt better knowing that Chan and Don Juan planned to ingest the mushrooms with me. I spent time anxiously thinking about the ceremony, trying to imagine what it would be like. Beyond this curiosity, my mind was mostly blank. However, I did not have the luxury to vacantly drift very long in this state. Within 4 days, the moon was full. On the day of the ceremony, we all awoke early. It was still dark when Chan prepared herb teas in the kitchen hut. He would not allow us to eat any food that day. There was an eerie silence around the place. Even the wind seemed to be still. Before dawn, Chan left us and went to damp wooded areas about 3 miles from the ruins to collect the mushrooms. Don Juan and I sat in the hut and stared at each other. What's the real connection between us, Don Juan? I asked him across the table. He looked at me from above his steaming mug. Your energy is close to leaving this world and traveling beyond it. Mine has already left it. I came for you. There's an integrity that's shared between us. That's the way I see it. When I first spied you in Arizona, you reminded me of the occasional spirit traveler who came into our lands before the coming of the whites. For 3 nights before your arrival, I heard the howl of the train in my dreams. You were what I was waiting for. I felt you, even when you were a little girl. That is why I was standing there at the train station. You know by now that I put my own energy into you. I gasped as I fully remembered the last time I saw Don Juan. His eyes burnt. There's another connection between us, and that's through the feathered serpent. This is a history shared by many native peoples throughout the Americas. It took different names, but the teachings were the same. Some say it was coming with the final piece of prophecy to these lands that were unknown to the rest of the world. Others say it was a being who escaped death and changed its body into light. Nevertheless, these revelations to a visionary people should have been recognized and respected for what they were. At the coming of others to these lands, there could have been grounds for commonality and exchange. This, of course, did not occur. What the whites did was try to obliterate native knowledge, and they thereby threw away a piece of the answer to some of their most profound questions. They forced the Indian to accept a lesser reality, and in that way, pushed the whole merging consciousness into their darkness. Native peoples held to their knowledge in secret, and now every piece of the puzzle fits together as they all come to move into something new. Formally, unrevealed knowledge is being shared. Prophecies are reaching outer limits. What the new world will be is of great concern here. Matter is separating from spirit. Its vibration should be increased, spiritualized to form a unified, transfigured whole. This is what Kukulkan revealed. Don Juan thought for a moment. Its mark is on you. That's what I saw when I first laid eyes on you. What mark is that, Don Juan? I looked at him wide-eyed, cocking my head to the side in amazement. A light in the center of your forehead, here, about an inch deep inside. Don Juan reached across the table, and with the first two fingers of his right hand, he touched a place less than an inch above my eyebrows. I intuitively knew that he and Chan had the same light glowing. Don Juan gently smiled at me and retracted his hand. In the late morning, Chan returned from his trip to the woods. My chin fell to the ground when I saw the size of his sack. It was as large as a lawn bag. Don Juan burst into hysterical laughter and slapped his hand repeatedly on the wooden table. Chan smiled apologetically. Marilyn thought she was going to nibble one or two, Don Juan managed to say between deep gasps for air. Why do you think you can't have any food? Chan asked as he collapsed on the ground next to his sack, also overtaken with laughter. The expression on my face must have been pretty entertaining. Really, Chan? You can't expect me to eat all that? I shrieked, standing limp under the mango trees, between a couple of rolling hyenas. Chan wiped tears from his eyes with his weathered hands, and patted the sides of his cheeks where he was smiling too broadly. His hair flopped over his ears. Some will be boiled, he finally reassured me, shaking his head and still laughing to himself. All that? I yelped. That started the two of them laughing again. I became disgusted and went off looking for Manik, hoping to play with him until these two composed themselves. When I came back with the monkey, Don Juan and Chan were trying to be serious. Don't you want to see them before I put them in the pot? Chan asked me, as if he were baking cookies. I walked over and took a peek. The sacred mushrooms did not look anything like I had expected. Like the large multicolored toadstools from Alice in Wonderland, perhaps. These resembled the nipples from baby bottles, or maybe slimy little partially opened umbrellas. They were brownish gray with a purplish spot at the tip of their cone tops, and there must have been 1,500 of them. Are those really them? I finally asked. Chan put his hand over his mouth to contain himself, while Don Juan stood up and walked away from the sacks to have a good laugh without disturbing me. Manik scrambled off my shoulder and onto Chan's. He hung his tail around Chan's neck and tried to swing down and snatch a mushroom. They seemed slicker and more delicate than any edible fungi I had ever seen. But then I was no expert. I sighed. Don Juan came back carrying a huge, heavy black cauldron. He quickly built a fire in the center of the shaded area under the mango trees and filled the iron cooker about half full with water from the rain barrel. When the water began to boil, Chan started putting enormous amounts of mushrooms into the bubbling liquid. They cooked down fast, but he kept adding more. The pot soon contained a lumpy, molten, brownish black sludge. During the afternoon, I would walk by and stare down into the cauldron, afraid of what I would see. The substance was so shiny that it looked like hot tar. I could even see my troubled face reflected back at me. And the liquid became darker and thicker as it cooked down. Finally, Chan transferred this molasses-like substance into a clay carrying pot and sealed it with a lid. There was about a half gallon of concentrated potion when he was finished brewing. Chan went to his hut and brought out a small urn of powder. He told me that this was the same thick liquid spread thinly on a wax paper and allowed to evaporate. Don Juan was busy shredding dried mushroom specimens and wrapping up the stringy fibers like pipe tobacco in a buckskin swatch. I'd never seen so many mushrooms in my life. In the early evening, we took bucket baths with rainwater. Chan dressed in a purple tunic shirt and drab green jeans. He added his jade beads and pierced earplugs. Don Juan wore a midnight blue cotton shirt and black denim pants with a bandana as a headband around his forehead. His chin-length, thick white hair glistened. I was impressed by the decorative dress, as if naked were not good enough for the spirit world. I slipped into a rose-colored, washed silk tunic and slacks, and inserted the puma claw earring Don Juan had given me years ago. We looked approvingly at one another, and then headed up the path into the jungle, along the stream from the waterfall, and down toward the ruins. It was late twilight when we arrived. Chan was carrying everything in woven shoulder bags. He signaled for us to walk past the Temple of the Inscriptions and head toward Pakal Bhutan's palace and the Chamber of Initiations within it. The structure shone brightly in the light of the full moon that was already rising. The place was completely silent. Not even nightbirds or cicades were singing yet. We entered the center chamber of the palace with the four-columned elevated platforms. Chan took his northern position and Don Juan the one to the west. My spot was on the south platform. As it had been the first afternoon Chan brought me here. The night sky was a dark, lush tapestry above. It would be a clear night with many stars. Chan walked down to the center courtyard between the four platforms and lit the ceremonial fire. After it began burning well, he placed the clay carrying pot on the flames. Don Juan unrolled a pipe bag and extracted a long deer antler and bone pipe. He offered the pipe to the four directions and then to the fifth, the zenith. He then loaded the bowl. We'll proceed in rounds. First the smoke, then the brew, the fresh, and last the powder, Chan said, checking the pot over the flames. He climbed up to his position on the northern platform. With each successive wave, you'll be elevated higher. As more of the mixture gets into your bloodstream and hits your brain, you'll catapult into another realm. These movements are often accompanied by flashes of light. You must maintain the intention of what you seek. You'll fly extremely high and very far, but it's imperative to remember to land. Otherwise, you won't come back, and in the morning, we'll find your dead body lying here on this spot. I felt like a cold rock had sunk into the pit of my stomach. Don Juan lit the pipe bowl and took a long draw. He did not exhale the smoke. Don Juan smoked for a while, and then stood up and brought the pipe to me. I puffed. The smoke tasted somewhat like dirt. In time, I walked over and handed the pipe to Chan, who reloaded the bowl, smoked a while, and then brought it back to me. For every bowl they smoked, I had to smoke too. At one point, Chan went to the eastern platform and placed a 6-inch hand-carved soapstone goddess upon it. He said she was Ixchel, the moon and water goddess. She would bring us back with the descent of the moon in the morning. He told me to listen for the sound of the babbling stream as I returned to my body. It would be a guide to pull me back in. Slowly, I began to notice the whine of the cascades getting sharper and louder. It feels like the sound is sawing or piercing my brain. Chan comes over and leads me to the center fire, where he opens the pot. With his obsidian blade, he makes an incision between the second and ring finger of my right hand. It hurts, but somehow I do not feel like I am fully participating. The blood drips into the pot. My hand is wrapped, and I go back to sit down on the south platform. I have some trouble deciding which platform is mine. The pot comes around. Chan starts it. With each pass, one must dip into it with a tiny clay ladle and slurp the contents. When it comes to me, I notice the vessel has 4 emerging beans, one for each of the directions, decorating its sides below the clay handle. I cannot seem to focus on them. The potion tastes and feels like sod in my mouth. It is not at all sticky as I anticipated. The flavor is very bad, but not so bad that I cannot finish the spoonful. I believe Chan has put some honey and flour sweeteners into it. However, the problem is the aftertaste, which is very metallic and grows exponentially stronger with each taste, becoming overwhelmingly dominant. And the belching, horrendous. I feel that I will retch up the potion each time the pot comes around, but there is really no sensation of nausea, just the dread of the aftertaste. Actually, my body begins to feel very pleasant, quite euphoric. I'm not sleepy in the slightest, as I had expected. On the contrary, I am exhilarated and hypersensitive. I look about at the surroundings. Everything is so intensified I keep glancing from one thing to the next. The rustling trees seem to be whispering messages. I can hear and feel the tinkling of the water rushing through the underground system beneath us. Don Juan and Chan look somehow enhanced. It is as if they move in glowing slow motion. Chan lifts his tunic and slices across the flesh above his heart with his obsidian blade. He opens the small urn and presses mushroom powder into the wound. Then he covers the site with fig bark paper and massages in a clockwise motion. Don Juan unbuttons his shirt. He takes his own blade and slices down the center of his chest at the heart. He also presses the powder in and massages the wound with fig bark paper. Chan comes over to me with a third obsidian blade. I slice between my breasts. The flesh there is not as sensitive as I would have thought. I take a large quantity of powder and press it into the wound, and then apply pressure with the bark paper, which stops most of the bleeding. I massage the area, following their example and covering it with fig bark. To my amazement, the powder disappears into the wound. Chan walks back to his seat. The fire seems to grow in intensity and casts weird golden light across everything. Its crackling becomes all-absorbing, like background radiation. Chan and Don Juan watch the fire with rapt attention. The top portion of their skulls appear to swell as the lower part narrows. The result has an almost light bulb shape. I see a pink glow coming from them and shake my head in disbelief. Ghost-like vapor wafts from the tops of their heads. Sound stretches and distorts with every movement. I do not feel the stone as being solid beneath me any longer, and yet I feel the pull of gravity. Rushes like chills start to move up and down my body in waves. I also feel the moon's pull and look up at the white orb. The light becomes silver. It is sticky and radiating. I am being lifted up like steam into its flowing beam. I perceive its glowing lines of energy and head along them toward the satellite, closer and closer, higher and farther. I release any desire to push myself back down into my body. I am almost free. My breath comes heavy and fast with excitement. I begin to see the surface of the moon's craters, and then I hear an inner whisper inquiring where I would like to travel. My first thought is toward the sun. I now feel myself change direction and hurtle into black space toward a light in the distance that rapidly grows larger and soon becomes unbearably hot. I'm going to collide and burn up. There is a blinding flash as I seem to accelerate in all directions at almost light speed. The force of this motion is so intense that I lose awareness of all other sensations but that of the movement and the light. Chapter 14. I am beyond dreaming. The mushrooms have propelled me into genuine shape-shifting. I move with everything. I am into simultaneous time and creation. After an explosion of light, I perceive a clearing, and I'm walking through a shimmering golden oval toward the Ganges River, balancing a tall clay water pot on my head with my right hand. There is no detachment. I am fully present in this scene. My dress is a large piece of orange silk wrapped around my body and draped over the left shoulder. My feet are bare. As I walk, I look to the left and see a spinning yellow-white light about the size of a dinner plate heading towards me. I quicken my step, knowing intuitively that the light is my exploding energy body, and that if it touches me, I will die in this scene. The light chases me as it increases its gyrations. I run. It almost catches up with me as I reach an underground cooling shed on the banks of the Ganges. I step inside and quickly close the door behind me, thinking I am safe. I can see many water vessels in the light that sprays through a few cracks in the wooden door. As I take a deep breath of relief, the spinning disc emerges out of nowhere and appears over my left shoulder again. It has been there all along. The light disc spins closer and touches the flesh of my shoulder blade, and I explode into light. At first, there is nothing, and then comes the sensation of ash slowly settling into a cone-shaped pile. After a period that seems like 3 days, there is a stirring in the ash, similar to a breeze or a breath, and that becomes awareness. My emerging awareness easily passes through the wood and earth that makes up the shed. I rise until I float freely above the Ganges. Spreading my senses through the air-like wings, I watch men and women bathe and gather water. I listen to the music of their voices as I drift higher and higher above the river. And then, in another explosion of light, I blink out of the scene. At almost the same moment, I am a phoenix rising from an Egyptian tomb, a giant eagle-like creature of golden fire. As I burst forth from the ground, the oxygen feeds the force of my flames, and my immense wings beat like bellows with the breath of magnetic energy displacements. Below, people walk all along the sands in delicate white linen garments. I watch the light around them grow stronger until there is another brilliant flash. Bright awareness gives way, and I perceive a light-filled, dome-shaped chamber. The beings there are so golden luminous that I can hardly discern them. I mostly sense their presence. Their thoughts sound like voices, surging and rippling in my mind. They communicate telepathically, telling me to return when I have completely transfigured the body. They are alien angels traveling from another world. I am shown an abstract artifact of golden light etched with symbols. From its top, a fountain of multicolored energy sprays, spilling upward like the Genesis beam. It is the power of celestial crescendo, and its knowledge is encoded into me. Ecstatic, I explode into another flash of light. Light propels me forward and precedes my awareness, which arrives at a green jungle. I am amazed at my location. A group is gathered at the outskirts of a modest village in southern India, listening to Prince Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. It appears to be around 500 BCE, which means I have moved ahead a great span of time. Prince Gautama stops his discourse to smile beatifically at me. He notices me assessing my situation rather than paying attention to the talk. I look furtively at the people around me and then turn my attention back to myself. I now realize that I am an ugly little man. I stare at my arms and hands in disbelief, examining them as if they belonged to those of a foreign species. This shapeshift comes as a tremendous shock to me, but I am so enthralled by the Buddha that I turn back and listen to his words. You will struggle for a purpose in another land, little monkey face, he tells me when I look up into his face. He is a spectacular creation, with his big, robust body dressed in honey-colored silk, almond moon eyes, and his flawless, soulful features formed in the highest caste of India. Purify life, he counsels me. The best work is transmuting the low forms until they become the high. Seek to enter the clear light void. I am enraptured by his words as Gautama points to the forest. I do not wish to leave the peace and humility instilled by his teachings, but he indicates that there is work for me to do elsewhere. He and his pilgrims traipse off through the lush, flowering Indian vegetation to the next small village. I sit in the woods alone. Soon it starts to drizzle. The patter can be heard on the green leaves. Off in the near distance, a tusked elephant cries out with an eerie, clicking call. I realize that I am not this little man. I am energy. This awareness causes me constitutional chaos. All the scenery's colors bleed like a watercolor in the rain. I am shifting into a rainbow bubble. Chan's words filter through as a guiding beacon. Land, or you'll never come back. The resulting brilliant flash turns into the sun shining through jungle foliage. It is warm and steamy. I look at my body. It is darkly tanned and female. This feels right, I say to myself in Maya. Looking around, I find that I am on a litter, being transported over a path through dense jungle toward a palace designated for the female ritual offerings. Male sacrifices must always be victims of war or ritual sport. I languish on the litter in a cool white tunic while a small Mayan man holds a long bamboo pole topped with a round palm frond fan over me to provide shade. I know I am here to finally and fully transcend and heal. Where are you taking me? I lean over and calmly ask one of the Maya walking beside me in the procession. The Halach Uinik has requested that you be brought before Kukulkan, he tells me, his high black ponytail and white loincloth bobbing with every step. Am I not the chosen of the Halach? I challenge him. Yes, Long reads, but yesterday the prophet Kukulkan arrived from his teaching tour of Uxmal. The Halach begged him to stay and bless our city with his knowledge. The Halach Uinik offered Kukulkan anything within his power to bestow in return for him remaining here in Chichen Itza, making it the most powerful city-state in the world of the Maya. The man is completely carried away by his own gossip. And what did Kukulkan request? He requires a sacrifice, the man informs me, as if that is always the natural pleasure of the gods. He ordered that a sacrifice be performed in his honor. I pry, pondering my new fate. No, he desires that the Halach Uanik turn over his highest sacrificial honor to him for instruction. The pedestrian Maya corrects me. Instruction in what? I wonder as we approach Chichen Itza. We arrive at the nunnery where I will live alone, visited daily by the Chuch Kahwa, who shall initiate me into the mysteries of cyclical time from his expert knowledge of the sacred Tzolkin calendar. He is waiting for me inside the hewn stone structure and is lighting a wall torch when I enter. I walk over and douse my face from a basin of cool water. The Chuch Kahwa is Chan, fully present. Welcome, welcome, happy day, he says, turning around to smile at me. Chan is wearing a white tunic that hangs to the knee. Have you heard, Longreads? Have you heard the news about Kukulkan? I heard it on the way back from the sacred well at the Bolinchin cave, I reply, recalling the vortex of spirit waters, my point of emergence. What do you think of his being here? He asks. It is a good sign, Chan smiles. As we speak, a large group arrives from a tour of the astronomical observatory across the way. Flute players and flower throwers accompany the procession. The Halach Uanik wears his finest Quetzal feather headdress that sways 5 feet above the heads of the people. I hear him discussing recent advances at Chichen Itza with someone in the crowd. At that moment, the throng of people's parts and a man formerly unknown to me approaches the nunnery. He does not have the appearance of a god. His head is not heightened, and his skin is somewhat pale. He wears an ordinary white tunic, as do many of us, rather than fine ceremonial attire. However, there is a quality about him, a look in his eyes, and a special golden highlight around his waves of brown hair. Now he does the unthinkable. He crosses the threshold of my dwelling place, which custom forbids to anyone other than my attendants, the Chuch Kahwa, the Halach Uanik, and me. I am at a loss for words. He gazes at me kindly in the light of the sun passing through the doorway. Chan steps back into the shadows. So you are the one who would die for transformation? Kukulkan asks, surveying the sun's illumination of the carved relief stone walls. If you request it, I reply respectfully, trembling under my tunic. I could give you a choice, he says with an authority only a god could convey. What are you called? Longreads, Lord. And why do they call you that? A long reed is strong because it yields to the force that moves it. It neither breaks nor is uprooted, but bends, allowing that which passes to go its way. This is our concept of perfect sacrifice. I answer him. He beams at me. Does everyone think as you do? Only I think as I do, my lord. Kukulkan nods in acknowledgement. What I require of you is now that you answer my questions about Chichen Itza. I will call for you each day. Do you agree to this? I agree to your request, Lord Kukulkan. Kukulkan and the hordes of Maya then leave and continue their tour with the Halach Uanik. I sit down on a straw mat. Chan brings me some fruits as I replate a section of my long black hair. He plops down on the mat beside me. You did well, he says. What did I do? I ask, peeling an avocado. You were honest. In the morning, I am escorted to the field of ceremonial flowers by a young male Mayan emissary. He points to the center to indicate that Kukulkan can be found there. I walk through rows of fragrant, tall lilies, carnations, and irises. In the midst of a magnificent section of marigolds, I discover Kukulkan reclining on a straw mat, basking in the fresh light and fragrance. Good morning, Longreeds, he calls to me. Come sit beside me here, he says, patting the mat. I sit on my knees next to him. What beauty! All the rippling flowers, no? No? I agree with a nod of my head. Tell me, how many gods are worshipped here at Chichen Itza? He is smiling. We have an entire pantheon of gods. The principal deity of Chichen is the water spirit. We will, of course, incorporate you into our main worship, now that you are residing with us. I proclaim respectfully, using my training in political diplomacy. Kukulkan seems unimpressed. The Zapotecs to the northwest believe in only one energy, transforming but present in all, he says pensively. I am of like mind, I respond as the breeze blows. What do you know of me, Longreeds? Your coming was foretold to us in prophecies that began with tribes to the north. You are a god of transformation, a teacher, a healer, and a bringer of peace. I impart my energy, he replies. Do you know this symbol? Kukulkan draws two crossed lines in the earth between our mats. That is the symbol of our male corn deity, Yum Cax. I respond with pleasure. And what is my own symbol here? Kukulkan asks. I draw a circle topped by a triangle in the dirt under his crossed lines. Your symbol is the planet Venus. You see, here is the earth, the circle, and here is the divine wisdom coming down into life in the form of a pyramid, this triangle. I smile with satisfaction at having correctly explained his hieroglyph. Kukulkan smiles. Now look at the combination of all three. I gaze at the marks on the ground. The result is that the crossed lines sit upon the apex of the triangle, as our roof combs sit upon the tops of temples in my ancestral home of Nachan, Palenque. This is prophecy. See this new sign? Have vision. Kukulkan commands. I fix the symbol in my mind. It begins to explode with meaning, blossoming within my forehead. Kukulkan continues. This will have much power for change, good and bad, in the period of time to come. It must be passed through. It will purge, distill, and purify. Now tell me, how did you come to be at Chichen Itza? I was brought here. Seers are always from Nachan, just as the Chachkahua all come from Tikal, where they study the calendars. When I was reported to have emerged, the Halach Uanik, who is from this place, was studying the wisdom of the Mayan dynasties at Uxmal, the university city. He ordered me transported here. I fiddle with a marigold stem. How are you found? The priestesses and the jaguar priesthood navigate the energetic realms in a search for a female with visionary capacity and a complete womb. Kukulkan ponders the situation with great reflection. What is the purpose of your offering? He is gazing solemnly into the endless waves of swaying flowers, splashing with golden color. My own offering opens the way for transformation and transcendence. It is energetically evolutionary and hopefully healing. It also permits the Halach Uanik a glimpse into the mysteries of energy and spirit. My reward is my spiritual identity and my energy. Kukulkan considers for a moment. As enticing as that must be for the Halach Uanik, does he truly deserve such revelation without seeking it from his own heart, offering himself? In willingly offering the life of another, can he indeed enter into the higher realms he seeks? All your offering does for him is suggest the existence of awareness and energy beyond death. Unless he appreciates the value of the life being offered, the greatest altruism, the offerings of one's own life, how can he travel higher paths? He stares intently into my eyes. I pause to reflect. I risk telling him my true feelings. I believe that there is much to be learned from a sacrificial offering, but that in the final analysis, one must transform oneself. One must do the work, not pull energy through others. Then there is also the value of sparing life and bringing it forth. Kukulkan appears touched by my honesty. The only sacrifice equal to the greatest energy and spirit, the only one worthy of being practiced, is sacrifice of self. It is the only offering that will heal the world, evolve the spirit, and provide the harmonious balance of energies needed to create life. It is the sacrifice that emerges as something higher. You shall merge with the fidelity and love that is waiting for you out there. Kukulkan stares at me curiously. This knowledge is deeply pervasive at all levels. You cannot ascend without dealing with it. Every ascending energy must offer itself for something greater. What is offered is what matters most. Energy should be free. A flying, departing, and returning spiral being, blithe and abundant. An infinite explosion, an eternal rippling feathered wave of dazzling color, the dance of love and sheer attuned force, and the boundless vibration of the spheres. Humanity does not see. It is like a stone-cold breast with no milk, superficial. And man is always exacting payment. Who gave him the right to charge for something he did not invent? You must know now what I prefigure. If you give yourself, you will have a choice. You will not be taken in some crude way. If your offering is for transformation, energy will empower it. Kukulkan stops for a moment to watch a butterfly. The Maya have an inspired prophecy about the end of this cycle of time, do they not? If you refer to the Tolkien calendar, Lord, I reply, and you wish to discuss this matter in detail, the Church Kahwa is far more knowledgeable than I. This is one reason I am here, Kukulkan assures me gently. I will discuss it with him, yes. That is a time when men will again need to see the energy and hear messages of how to live. Long reads, you have the opportunity to participate. Kukulkan seems to be entirely absorbed in his revelations. This is freedom of which I speak, his eyes penetrating. I am mesmerized by his vision. Kukulkan lies on his back. Freedom for everyone? I finally ask. My body collapses, and I also lie back on the mat and stare up at the sky in contemplation. Kukulkan smiles knowingly with his face toward the heavens. First, hopefully, transformation. Then, as always, for each according to their works and according to their heart. We continue to lie on our backs, watching the towering white cloud, heads drift by in silence. Chapter 15. For the next several days, Kukulkan complies with the requests of the Halach Uinik and blesses him with prophecy for Chichen Itza. Our sight will not fall like others, but it will endure and prosper as a shining vestige of our culture, well into the new millennium. This, of course, is contingent upon several conditions: the abolition of all human sacrifice, slavery, and torture. The Halach seems fascinated with these concepts. Chichen Itza is already distinct from other Mayan city-states in that it is not ruled by a royal dynasty, but by a triad of warrior noblemen brothers representing factions. He can foresee how these additional reforms could make Chichen a lasting star in the realm of the Yucatan. However, his warrior brothers do not share his conviction. They each have plans of conquest, and although the Halach Uanik is the senior member of the triad rulership, they hold the majority. These two sibling brothers conspire against Kukulkan's reforms, drawing on their ambitious sacrificial priesthoods, the sharp knives, and the house of night. The mystical jaguar priesthood, the Chalam Balam, and priestesses align themselves with the Halach Uanik and Kukulkan. One afternoon, the Halach Uanik visits the nunnery while I am there alone. Wearing a small straw and feather headdress, a white waist tunic, and sandals, he enters and sits at my table. He seems quite worried about the political intrigue. On the day of Chak in this year, I am going to renounce the sacrifice due to me, he utters in a rebellious fashion, expecting me to be beholden to him. I hope this will usher in the new era Kukulkan speaks of. That will be a very impressive decree, I say in awe. You believe, then, that the moral benefits outweigh the risks? I grab the edge of the wooden table. Yes, according to Kukulkan's vision. The price for this vision might be very high. Are you prepared to pay it? The Halach stares back at me without replying. This may be beneficial for you, but only if you can see it all the way through. I feel sympathy for him. I am accustomed to pain with my life. You are not. I hope that I am. It has great import for the Maya. I also hope that afterward you will finally acknowledge my devotion to you, he says with genuine tenderness. I am moved to tears. I have coveted you since the first day you were brought to me. You are the only one who soothes my soul. I empty with rippling sadness, awestruck. His unforeseen humility overwhelms me. I walk around the table and put my hands on his shoulders, solacing him. Although we have been perceived as arch-enemies, I have always understood the difference between the role and the man, and I have hoped. He leaves without another word. I stand outside my door and watch heavy rain clouds move across the sky. The strong winds blow the inhabitants of Chichen like hollow reeds. A ghost-like anticipation hangs over our land. I see the Halach Uanik peering at me from every shadow, haunting me with those sad eyes as I walk about the city, talking with Kukulkan. I will be leaving, Kukulkan tells me the next morning as we stroll. But that is not important. What is of lasting value has already been set in motion. I try to put my fear aside by sitting in silence with Chan. We patiently wait until the day of the sacrifice, when the Halach Uanik will make his proclamation. The rural Maya are flushed into the sacred city like floodwaters for the day of the offering at the holy pool of Chak. Gossiping crowds pass by the nunnery all morning. The passage alleys between the temples, streets, and courtyards, normally open and empty, are now thronged with shuffling feet. The plan is to build future temples very high to accommodate the greater and greater influx into the city on high ceremonial days, while still providing a measure of privacy to resident ritual practitioners. When the city is finally filled to capacity, the road to the sacred pool of Chak is cleared and strewn with flowers. The sharp knives and the house of night priesthoods of the Halach brothers line the way on either side with the masses behind them. The jaguar priesthood circles the water. A group of singers arrive to serenade me and escort me to the water. I am dressed in a simple white tunic with my long hair in two braids wound around my head. Chan accompanies me and we talk. People chant as we pass the observatory. Be prepared for anything, Chan says. We act normal, nodding our heads to the crowds we walk past. I try to look enraptured. The road is a long and narrow soft decline. When we arrive at the pool, the Halach Unik is already there in his finest, tallest green Quetzal feather headdress. He motions for us to approach the rim of the pool, and we step forward. He takes my wrist and raises it for all to see. The crowd gasps, expecting him to begin binding my hands in preparation for throwing me into the depths. A wind kicks up. Here our new world begins. This offering now ends. She lives. He shouts loudly and releases my arm. The crowd is confused. Before the Halach can explain Kukulkan's vision to the people, the two rival priesthoods push forward threateningly, filling the lane. I glance furtively at Chan, who is scanning the crowd to gauge its mood. Suddenly the mass of people part once again. Stand back! It's Kukulkan! Someone shouts. Stand back! The people are hushed and reverent as we watch his shape slowly emerge from the crowd. I take a deep breath and grab for Chan's hand. It is Kukulkan, his arms bound behind his back, pushed forward by warriors with spears and followed by senior members of the Sharp Knives and House of Night. Armed members of their priesthoods now emerge from the jungle and ring the pool. They grab the Halach Unik. Taken by surprise, the weaponless and now desperate members of the Jaguar priesthood flee into the jungle. The masses tremble in fear. The Halach Unik stares at me heartbroken. Priest of the Sharp Knives, ordered by the two lesser Halach brothers, push him to the ground and behead the Halach Unik on the spot with a sharp obsidian sickle. They raise his blood-spurting head to the sky by its feathered headdress, shouting and threatening Kukulkan. The eldest of the rival brothers picks up the carved staff of authority from the dirt and holds it out, claiming his dead brother's position. The crowd is horrified and ready to scatter. I am slain with anguish, and so I scream. Kukulkan does not struggle, and the priests push him back through the throng toward his destiny. A huge caravan has formed to escort Kukulkan to the coast. Soldiers of the two opposing priesthoods, with the new reigning warrior Halach in a litter, travel quickly through the brush that fringes our shoreline. They push Kukulkan mercilessly through the thorny brush, which scratches him repeatedly. Chan and I creep along at the tail of the procession. Most of the rural Maya are flabbergasted. They oppose this subjugation of a god and want to revolt against it, but they are frightened and unorganized. Some begin to justify it by saying that other gods must be partners in this overthrow. For the time being, no one seems terribly concerned about us. When we arrive at the ocean, a floating funeral pyre is quickly constructed. Kukulkan allows them to tie him to it. I will return to you, he tells the gathered Maya, as the warriors bind him. He spies me peeping, unnoticed, from around one side of the crowd. In the year one read, look for me here, where you leave me now. I struggle to push my way through the crowd to him. A guarding warrior catches me and pins my arms back. They ignite the pyre and cast Kukulkan off into the sea. I wail. The burning pyre bobs up and down on the water, and soon my teary, unblinking eyes can no longer endure the ghastly sight. And then the pyre explodes into a blaze of light. the likes of which no one has ever seen. I am transfixed by the blaze, blown back and apart from the others by its force. The fire of transformation burns into the essence of my being, searing my forehead and then every cell of my body. The crowd watching the raging pyre is mystified and entranced. O's round everyone's lips. They are slowed, completely stilled. The blinding light softens into sunlight, rolling through a stone window opening. I have been transported. A breeze and a gentle enveloping murmur, coming from the sparkling turquoise ocean below the white cliffs, coalesce into an ethereal awareness. I am transparent and gaze out of the window in the rippling beam of light. In the smooth sea, where I last saw Kukulkan's pyre exploding, is Chan canoeing in the spirit waters from one of the barrier islands, not far off the coast. He lands and approaches our shelter with great speed on foot, across the shifting white sands and up the soft side of the cliff. I saw large phantom boats, Chan tells me as he enters, shimmering. Where are we? I ask. We are viewing past history in a place between worlds. We are traveling between bands of light. Are they going to land? I ask. They appear to be heading north, Chan replies. They're probably sailing for the coast closest to the Aztec capital. They appear like a wave of ghosts. It makes perfect sense to me. The Aztecs would now reign. They are merciless warriors. They have a calendar, yet their version ends with the third prophesied coming of Kukulkan in the year 1 reed, which is now. That is almost 500 years before the true end of the Mayan Tzolk'in, which prophesies a fourth coming and the beginning of an age called the sixth sun of pure consciousness. We begin to observe this era, watching time flow before us. Aztec merchants come and whisper to villagers that among these boat people is one who is indeed perceived by them to be godlike. He is their leader, a white-skinned, bearded man, dressed in hard, brilliant scales, who can separate himself at will from the tall, four-legged, snorting beast with whom he is joined as one being. Since he arrives in the year of 1 reed, many Aztecs believe him to be Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, as they say in their Nahuatl tongue, coming in the prophesied manifestation of a war god seeking vengeance. They are confused as to how to react. Will he wreak havoc on them? Dare they risk the danger of killing another deity? We see their emperor, Moctezuma, sending repeated offerings of gold and precious jewels for him to leave their land. As these strangers travel inland from the coast, a flood of native people join them and march under the banner of this new god. When the intruders reach the outskirts of Tenochtitlan, Moctezuma has no choice but to allow them to enter and pay homage to them. But he refuses to show the leader, the one thought to be Kukulkan, his treasure storehouse. Then something spectacular happens. The people of this entire land mass observe two celestial omens. First, there is a total solar eclipse, followed several nights later by an eerie comet that seems to hover in the darkening evening sky. It has a huge head, a long tail, and later sputters radiantly as it streaks across the blackness of the night sky. The best Zapotec, Maya, and Aztec astronomers attempt to interpret this sign. The Aztec people intuitively realize that they are gravely mistaken about the intent of the newcomers. It is now certain that whoever this being may be, his coming will be fatal to their universe. They hide their treasure and therefore finally engage in a bloody battle, fought to the death by almost every Aztec man, woman, and child in the city. The Español, as he calls himself, a supposed god and conqueror of the Aztec race, this total antithesis of Kukulkan, is Hernando Cortez, a demon who arrives in the year 1 Reed, and who sends his lackey, Pedro de Alvarado, south to conquer the Maya. When the second wave of invaders arrive with their beasts, Chan and I cross the energetic barrier and are more present in this real reality, which appears to be some kind of hell. We are in awe of them. They use armor that is heavy and noisy, and their bodies stink underneath it. The smell of their breath is putrid from eating sour meat. They are thin, pale, and have hairy faces. The animals, however, are fine, glossy, and beautiful, large and arrogant, strong and high-spirited. They enter the town of Tulum with their ragged band, abusing the population and demanding to know where to find more of the yellow metal. They yell in broken Aztec. The whole village is occupied. The local ruler is held captive in his chambers. He tells them in his Mayan accented Aztec that the village has no yellow metal. All that they possessed was traded long ago. The oppressors make slaves of the men. Maya are forced to haul their heavy chests to spare their breasts. People are questioned about the location of ancient cities and tortured when no one reveals anything. These horrors continue until the invaders are partially satisfied and go off in search of more booty. They promise to return to establish their own government, to which all will have to submit. When the next band of Españoles arrive, they look different from these warriors. I am almost fooled, but underneath they are the same devils. They dress in brown hooded robes and carry the crossed sticks that Kukulkan foresaw. The padres, as they call themselves, have been scouring the Mayan lands to confiscate and burn sacred books. When Chan hears of this atrocity, he hides more than 200 volumes under a trap door in the small shelter we are occupying. The villagers, minus the many men taken captive, walk out to greet the new intruders with a jaundiced eye. As a gesture of goodwill, the padres pass out woven blankets to all the villagers. They tell them that they are going to establish a community and that they want the villagers to accept their God, Jesucristo. The padres next build a wooden structure topped with their crossed sticks. They observe the agricultural methods and talk to the people about the book of their God. During their stay, we hear many rumors from other parts of the land about these people and the disease that follows. Maya in the village break out with small festering sores. At first, only a few people become ill, but it quickly spreads to nearly the whole population of Tulum. The sickness does not subside with time, but rather the body becomes increasingly covered with nasty, oozing boils. They are very painful and are accompanied by high fever. No one knows what to make of it. When the first person dies, Chan brings out his medicinal vapors and herbs to see if he can heal them, but he cannot stop the spread of the vile disease. We keep experimenting with new remedies while people die all around us. I walk into a dark hut where an old man is agonizing. Throughout the hanging, undulating shadows, I can hear him whimpering, and there is a sickly, still smell in the airless energy, like sulfur fumes. Outside, there is no one working the fields, and the padres spend all their time in the wooden dwelling, reading the book of Jesucristo. Is he going to die, Chan? I ask in a soft whisper. The man is giving up the ghost. Chan fans him with copal smoke. He then pours sips of a hot yellow herbal brew into the man's gaping, moaning mouth. Chan squats on his haunches and turns to me with a tired, worried look on his face. This is more than just death. It is beyond witchery or petty evil. I have never seen anything like it before. It is a second death. Heaven knows what these people are going through when they leave this realm, if they ever do. He puts his head in his hands. People are entering death all around us. The living are fearful about disposing of the massive number of corpses. Huge bonfires are built, but the villagers tremble at the thought that the disease might even be carried on the smoke. The padres believe that the illness was brought with the blankets and order all of them to be burned, but it is too late. This is the wrath of unrequited life force. Chan works tirelessly, but without success. The padres jabber on to the dying about accepting Jesucristo before death. Some of the villagers agree in desperation. They are anointed with oil and allow a small white wafer to be placed in their mouths, but there is no relief. When nearly everyone has died and the padres are considering leaving, I feel a pox on my forehead. I look panic-stricken at Chan. He has one on his face and several on his arms as well. I am horrified. Chan, how can this be happening? The illness has broken through the barrier. Are we also going to die? I gasp. I don't want to die this way. That is not all, either, he says. The conquerors have decimated the people. There may not be enough knowledge left to ensure our culture's continuation. We have to save whatever we can, Marilyn. Chan's face fractures with sadness. We hear the sound of the padres approaching. They burst into our shelter and begin to accuse Chan of bringing this plague on by hoarding the books of the Diablo. The padres are furious and ransack the room, moving a straw mat covering the trap door. An evil smile crosses their faces. They greedily retrieve the 200-plus volumes from the underground hiding place. Thumbing through them, they laugh at the hieroglyphs and numbers and toss the books like trash into a big pile in front of the doorway. Chan and I stare at each other with dread while they prepare to burn the books. Without our knowledge, we might not return, he tells me. I recoil as the padre's light kindling around centuries of treasured wisdom. Memory comes from within, Chan finally says, peering transfixed at the growing blaze. Do you trust me? I nod my head yes. He grabs my hand. We make a fierce dash out of the door and jump into the bonfire. The center has not ignited yet, but there is flesh-crisping heat ringed by roaring flames. My nostrils and lungs burn with smoke. We stand there, huddled against one another, on top of our mound of burning knowledge and history. The padres scream at us and pray for salvation. What we have done is so wholly other to them. As I hear them cry in horror, there is an explosion of light within the ring of fire, and I am standing on the burning funeral pyre before Kukulkan. It is he and I who now blaze, surrounded by flames. Chan is gone. Kukulkan picks up a book from the ignited pile that rages around us. He holds the book out to me until I take it from his hand. Then he smiles, and we explode into an other blinding flash. I awakened in the cold stream above the ruins of Palenque. I was lying on my back, completely immersed in water. Dawn was breaking, and both Chan and Don Juan were at my side, trying to revive me. I stared up into the weather-worn face and thick white hair of Don Juan, who was smiling down at me. We better get out of here, Chan said. It will be morning soon, and this scene would create a stir. Can you walk, Marilyn? I can't even move, I managed to mumble. Don Juan and Chan each took one of my drenched arms. They lifted me up rather easily, which surprised me but should not have. When they saw that I was unable to walk, Don Juan, with the strength of a lumberjack, hoisted me onto his back, and we began to walk away. He carried me piggyback for almost a mile, up a mild incline. I was overwhelmed by the power and determination of this 98-year-old Indian man. I wrapped my arms around his neck and shoulders and buried my face in his white hair. I sensed myself basking in the force of his presence. "Don't leave me, Don Juan," I said to him. I felt Don Juan's warrior's intent could have carried me up the steepest mountains of Tibet, gleaming as white as the shimmering hair on his eagle-like head. I was Heidi riding on the back of my grandfather as the sun rose over the jungle. The morning's floral rainbows awoke to trumpet and unfold erotically. This was surreal life and awareness, ever changing. The thick rainforest fragrances tried to draw me to their lush centers as my head spun, and I spiraled into them. A giant lime green butterfly fluttered the dance of light, and my cheek lolled on my arm as I followed it. When we arrived back at Esmeralda's place, Chan deposited me in the curing hut. I immediately fell asleep. My dreams were very sad and fragile, like dewy drops of captured birdsong suspended in a spider's web, or vibrating harp strings in the moaning breeze.